Did you email me? So I want to keep including a lot of the calculator tricks. When you get a calculator that's a shared resource, when you pick up your calculator, the first thing you should do is clear the memory. And that happens by pressing this blue button here second. And then when you press the plus sign here, memory, you get this screen. Second memory. Now it's your choice whether you arrow down to choice 7 or just hit the number 7, and then 1, and then 2. Second mem, 7, 1, 2, clears out the memory of your calculator. Can everybody have a calculator? Can everybody please do it? Because I want you getting used to it. We're going to get to a point where we're going to start changing some things in the calculators. So every time you get one, you want to make sure that it's doing what you want it to do. Second mem, 7, 1, 2. And then you can just press clear. And then you can move on. Okay? So we're going to be showing you some cool things about the calculators, but I want to make sure that we make an effort to continue using them. Back to the homework. Any questions on 1, 2, or 3 with our similar triangles, the similarity statements, and the justification? Questions on 1, 2, and 3? All right. Questions on 4, 5, and 6? Questions on 4, 5, and 6? With that side splitter converse, please ask if you are curious. All right, 7, 8, and 9. We had our angle bisector theorem. We had our corollary to our side splitter, and then our side splitter. Any questions or drama there? Okay, so we had a question about the geometric mean when we're finding the geometric mean. So there's two kinds of basic operations that we do in mathematics: addition and multiplication. Subtraction is the inverse of addition. In fact, we can write every subtraction problem as an addition problem, so we don't worry too much about that. Division is the inverse of multiplication. We can write every multiplication problem as a division problem, every division as multiplication, and vice versa. So we're really, two things you need to think about: am I adding or am I multiplying? Is this about combining sums, or is this a shortcut to repeated addition by multiplying? When you find the arithmetic mean, that's what our midpoints are. Everybody look at the midpoint formula. x1 plus x2 divided by 2. y1 plus y2 divided by 2. You are finding the arithmetic average when you do your midpoint calculations. x1 plus y, x1 plus x2. Add those two numbers together, divide by 2. That is the arithmetic mean. That's the arithmetic average. The geometric mean is that same conversation, but with respect to multiplication. So whenever I'm looking for the geometric mean between two numbers, I'm talking about what number fits this proportion. 18 times 40, x times x is x squared. Some teachers, when they teach the geometric mean, they jump right to what is the square root of the product of these two numbers. Some teachers jump right to the geometric mean is going to be the square root of the product of these two numbers. When we set it up as a proportion, that's the justification for this first sentence. If I multiply the two numbers and then take the square root, what do I get? And notice that's what I'm doing each time. So if you're curious about how to find the geometric mean, I always prefer to start off with this ratio where I talk to myself about x is down here and x is there, because that number is going to be the geometric mean of any two numbers that are in the other positions. And then we simplify the radical by finding perfect squares or double factors and pulling them out. You'll have some practice on that today. Make sure you ask questions if it ends up being a sticky spot for you.
So what I did for 10 was I just wrote 720 in the square, and then I got it down to 4 and square root of 45, and then when I squared that, it worked as 720. So is that still a right answer, or?
So 4 roots of 45, you still have a perfect square in there because of 9, so it's not all the way simplified.
Oh.
It's like if someone asked you to simplify the fraction 10 out of 20, and you told them it was 5 out of 10. You're like, you can go lower. You can call that 1/2. So you got partial of the way done, but not all the way.
Oh, okay.
So you want to make sure you find all the perfect squares. All right, on the back of this, we're going to use our side splitter and corresponding sides of similar figures. This base is going to mean that I have a 2 to 3 ratio between these two sides. So that's going to exist between these two sides, and that's going to exist between these two sides. You can use the side splitter between them if you think of 6 and 4 to find these other sides here. But if you're talking bases, anytime you use the base in your calculation, you can't use the shortcut. You can't use the side splitter. Distance across the lake. Is everybody good with? Go ahead.
Sorry, how did you get FC and ED on 12?
How did I get FC? And ED. Okay. So FC and ED, because this triangle here, ABG, has a 3 to 2 relationship between these two sides. So for me to get FC, I added 3 and 4 together, and I used AC as 7. So 3 to 7 is going to be the same as 2 to Y. This is that proportion here.
Okay.
Okay? And then the same thing for ED. When I'm looking for Z, I knew that 3 to 2 was going to be the same as 3 plus 4 plus 3. That's 10. 3 to 2 is the same as 10 to this Z. So that's this work here.
Okay.
So I added those pieces together. All right, down here, 14 and 15, some more side splitter conversations. Olivia was asking me about this one. She's like, I can't follow your work here. Did you distribute or not? I'm like, I actually took a shortcut because I knew that 6 and 96 were friendly numbers. I went ahead and I divided each side first without distributing, because in my mind, why distribute and do all that multiplication if I'm just going to be dividing? And I will always do that if these are friendly numbers. If I can divide away first, that's one of those extra steps that you can take when you can find those friendly numbers and you recognize it. To me, multiplying and then dividing is like untying your shoes and then tying them back again. Like, why bother? 16, that angle bisector theorem. 17, my converse of my side splitter. Questions on any of these? All right, go ahead.
How did you do 17?
So 17, I found my one side that did not, my one measurement that didn't have an X. And I knew that 3X was to 60 as 5X was to 8X. And then I simplified this by dividing out my X's. So then I went ahead and said 3X times 8 is 24X. 5 times 60 is 300. And that's how I got that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay. So we're going to do an activity today. And it's called a skill drill. So today is your review for your test. I have a lot of papers to pass back to you. Once I pass them back, then I'm going to let you guys go about your skill drill. If you have questions on your quizzes or tests or anything, you can talk to me during our work time. This will be a classwork grade that you turn in for me. All right, so the way that the skill drill works is that each of you are going to get this piece of paper, and it's an answer grid for all of the problems around the room. So if you look at the problems around the room, pink is where they start. So there's two sets. So half of the class is going to start on these papers here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and half of the class can start back there, so we don't have all 28 of us going to one part of the room. So the way the skill drill works is you do all the pink, and then you come check your answers with me. Nobody moves on until you get them right. So theoretically, you get the feedback and the chance to talk to me that you need on whichever skill that you need. So our first is simplifying ratios, and those ones have no units. Then is simplifying ratios with the units. Then we start talking about solving proportions. We move into some geometric mean practice. And then you check in with me. Make sure you have them all right. And then you work on the yellow, and then you check in with me. Make sure you have them all right. And then you work on the green, and then you check in with me. Make sure you have them all right. And then you work on the blue. So the idea is you get the feedback that you need, and you get the chance to ask the questions that you need. Now, some of the calculator work is what I want you to know how to do over here. Do you see how each of these say simplify the ratio? Would you please right now with your calculator type in 36 divided by 54. So the first one asks you to simplify the ratio, and it asks you to simplify 36 divided by 54. That is not a simplified ratio. That's a repeating decimal that goes on forever and ever and ever. And if I needed the decimal, I'd ask for the decimal, but I want the decimal, I want the simplified ratio. Who knows how to get the simplified ratio? Say it out loud. Math, frac,
2/3.
and sir.
Yes.
So that's the simplified ratio. Once you know this trick, there's never an excuse ever again for you not giving me a ratio in its simplest form. Because the calculator does it for you, you just have to know what buttons to press. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to start with passbacks, and then I'll give everybody a worksheet to start working. Okay. Here's what you just got back. Your most recent quiz, which is important for you to make sure you understand what you got wrong for our test next class period. There's no corrections. There's nothing due. There's no points back. Just if you want to get a better quiz average, complete your e-carts for the midterm review. And if you want to improve your grade, understand where you went wrong so you don't make the same mistakes on the test. And that's the purpose of our review today. You also got back your 5B quest. No corrections, nothing due, no points back, no retakes. That was a triangle centers quiz. We gave you 5 extra points on that for just writing your name. So originally it was out of 35. So if you want to know that difference that it makes, let's say you got 5 wrong, calculate these two ratios and you can see we already gave everybody a bump because we gave everybody 5 free points. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. If you want to do better on that quiz average, do your what? E-carts. Do your e-carts because that'll directly affect your quizzes. Are you okay with that? You also got your 5A test corrections back. You can see the points that you got back and that was a second quarter conversation. Any questions that you have about anything, you're welcome to talk to me. Otherwise, you're good to go. Start to work on your activity. At the check-in point, come see me so I can give you feedback on what you do or do not understand. Off you go.